oop, oop. Hold on a second here. Got it. Okay. Before I begin, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and express our appreciation to our outgoing historian, Joy Snow Takahashi, for all that she's done to document the history of JAWA and the extraordinary women that were its founders. As the daughter of one of the original members of the Japanese Women's Students Club, the precursor to JAWA, she authored the monograph, Lives and Legacy, chronicling the lives and contributions of some of the pioneers of our organization. On the slide, I don't know if how large the slide is, or if you can actually read the things on the slide, but it's a photograph of the house at 2509 Hearst Street, which was purchased in 1937 for $7,000. Due to racial discrimination, Japanese American women faced many obstacles in finding housing while attending UCB. Only after 10 years of fundraising were they able to purchase the house and provide an affordable place near campus for JA women to live. Fast forward to 1967, the house was sold for $72,000, and the money was turned over to the UC Regents as an endowment for the Japanese American Women Alumni Scholarship Fund. And as our treasurer will report to you, the endowment is quite healthy now. The history of our Alumni Association is an impressive one, but the legacy of the women who were its founders is the most meaningful. Their determination and vision inspire us to continue our work to grow the endowment fund so Japanese American and other AAPI women may achieve their educational goals. In addition, we look to build a stronger and more effective partnership with the university community and to support research, educational, and leadership development efforts with regards to Japanese American and other AAPI women. Lastly, we come together each year to honor the recipients of the undergraduate scholarship and graduate fellowship awards. Without fail, our recipients have demonstrated a commitment to their educational pursuits. And we're grateful that we're able to support them in their endeavors, with thanks to the women who had the foresight and the insight to establish the endowment fund. So to learn more about the history of our Alumni Association, you can visit our JAWA, our website, which is JAWUCB.org, which has a lot of very complete information about our doings past and present. So thank you very much for attending today, and I look forward to recognizing our outstanding alum and speaker, and especially our scholarship recipients. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Well, we've heard our legacy. We've heard of our great scholarship award program. So where are we now? And what is our vision? If we could go to the next slide. Okay, I'll just read it. Our vision is to inspire and support Asian American women as learners, leaders, and contributions to local and global communities in the spirit of our founding Japanese American alumni. Along with this with this vision, we've articulated some core values. In brief, our core values are connection, commitment, inclusion, and adaptability. Our board, under the leadership of our past chair, Lisa Hirani Tsuchitani, and director Ruth Ichinaga, has been working for the last 2 years to put into language our vision and core values, which honor our legacy and look forward toward the future. For example, we're not saying anymore Japanese American women, but Asian American women. You can see more about that on our website that Leslie mentioned. So now I'd like to briefly introduce our board members. When I call your name, we can take the spotlight off of me so people can see as many board members as possible. When I call your name, please raise your hands. Leslie Kono, and we'll go to the next slide so you can see what positions they hold.
Wait.
Leslie Kono.
Oh, no, I think Stacy Kono.
Oh yeah, what am I doing? I'm reading two lines at the same time. Thanks, Leslie. Stacy Kono, Leslie Hida Tsuchichani, Nancy Arata-Fong, Kei Yatabe, Leslie Tsukamoto, Barbara Kawamoto, Julie Nishihara, Nina Fallenbach Ichikawa, Lynn Nakada, Carol Tateshi, Betty Kano, Ruth Ichinaga, Adena Ishii, Janice Koyama, Joyce Takahashi, and Sayuri Takagawa. So you can see we have a fairly large board and a very active board. So I want to thank the board for your dedication to the Japanese American alumni. It's just been wonderful working with you and knowing that your leadership is, you are committed to the leadership of our Alumni Association and to the future. Also, a very special appreciation to the board members who will be leaving at the end of June. Lisa Hirai Tsuchitani, Ruth Ichinaga, and Nina Fallenberg Ichikawa. Thank you. We'll now hear from Nancy Arata-Fong.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. What I wanted to do was to, as the nominations chair, want to announce our 2022 elected board members. And the board members who will be renewing their 2-year terms would be Leslie Tsukamoto as corresponding secretary and myself as treasurer. And we have 2 board members who are renewing their 4-year director terms. That's Leslie Tsukamoto and Carol Tateishi. And we also have 3 new nominees for the 4-year director term, and that's Madeline Zingrig, Ann Liu, and Joan Fuji. So we thank you all for your service, for renewing your board terms, and we also look forward to meeting and working with our 3 new directors. Thank you. And as treasurer, I wanted to just give a brief financial report. As of last April, we had a balance of $17,341, and we had total receipts of $4,323, with total disbursements of $2,978. And so our closing balance as of February 28th is $18,686. And we also wanted to express appreciation for all of our donors. And these are donors to the Scholarship Endowment Fund, and we thank you for your contributions and support so we can continue to provide scholarships and fellowships to UC Berkeley students. So thank you so much for thinking about the endowment fund in your giving. And we also like to recognize our operating fund donors. These are people who have donated to the JAWA operating fund. And we thank you for your support to help JAWA carry out its purposes and goals. And we are so fortunate to have such a supportive membership. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Well, it's terrific to see all of you here on Zoom for this broad JAWA UCB community that we have. And it's my great pleasure to announce our JAWA UCB scholarship recipients for this year. We'll be hearing from Ayako Chao, Ashley Tyra, Julia Cristiano, Hannah Saab, Nico Tsukino, Victoria Koch, and Cameron Shiroma, who's our grad student this year. They come from a variety of backgrounds, hometowns, and fields of study, and each of them is very deeply engaged in all of their Cal journeys of their own. So without further ado, I would like to allow them to share their Cal journeys with you today. And we'll start with Ayaka. Hi, Ayaka.
Hello. Okay. Nice to meet you all. My name is Ayaka Cho, and your first speaker for the Japanese American Women Alumni Associate Scholarship recipients of UC Berkeley. Currently, I am a first-year computer science student who's also minoring in data science. I'm half Japanese and half Taiwanese and have been moving around the world often due to my parents' job. My hometown is Vancouver, Canada, but with the hopes of gaining a better education, my parents moved the family to San Francisco, America. Our family was never well off, but had great hopes for my brother and me to get a good education. Currently at Berkeley, I'm participating in tech consulting clubs, Japanese associations, and women in STEM mentoring programs, while also balancing my coursework. This summer, I'm going to intern at Sony Interactive Entertainment at Tokyo, Japan, and I'm super excited to connect back with my Japanese roots after not seeing Japan in so long because of COVID. Thank you so much, Japanese American Women Alumni. My parents and I are completely baffled by the amount of scholarship and financial aid money I have been generously given. With your help, I'm allowed more time to focus on my studies instead of work. With your help, I can afford to choose to go to Berkeley. I'm proud to be a Japanese American woman and be part of the support circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you so much, and congratulations on your upcoming job at Sony this summer. It's awesome. And next we will hear from Ashley Tyra. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, my name is Ashley Tyra, and I am currently a first year here at Berkeley. Right now, my intended major is psychology, and I'm just trying to fulfill all my prerequisite courses and classes right now, so I can hopefully declare the psychology major by the end of next year, the end of my sophomore year. And so after completing undergrad, I am planning on attending either grad school or medical school. I'm not really sure which one yet, but I was inspired by an introduction to a neuroscience class that I'm taking this semester. And I've just found that I'm like really interested in the biology and pharmacology aspects of the mind as it relates to behavior. So I think I do want to go to school to learn a little bit more about that after my undergraduate education. And after all my school is done, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I do think I want to work in combating the opioid crisis to help people get support. And I know that even here in Berkeley and even in the greater Bay Area, it's not like uncommon to see people abusing drugs or to see all kinds of paraphernalia on the streets and the sidewalk and all that stuff. So I want to work in the field, and maybe that will be, you know, helping people get into treatment or helping people through treatment or actually being like a medical professional in the facility. But I'm not really sure yet, but I do know that that is what I want to work towards. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to receive this scholarship because it's helping me pursue something that I'm really passionate about and something that'll definitely help a lot of people in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley, and thanks for your passion to help the community. Next, we're going to hear from Julia Cristiano. Julia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia, and I'm first year studying political science and business at Cal. Thank you all so much for your generous scholarship and inviting me to speak today. Thanks to your scholarship, I'm one step closer to achieving my goals of becoming an international diplomat. And this scholarship will really allow me to fully dedicate myself to my studies and any extracurriculars I participate in during college. I guess to provide a brief background on myself, I was born and raised in Japan until I moved to the US in 6th grade. And while I lived in Japan, I attended an international school, and it was really instilled within us to be global citizens and ambassadors. And I'm really grateful for that experience because it shaped a lot of who I am, and it gave me a global perspective. And to this day, I continually strive to uphold those values by appreciating the differences between people, because that's ultimately what makes us a well-rounded community. My time in Japan also cultivated my desire to collaborate with people around the world in pursuit of creating a better future. And that's partially why I'm incredibly passionate about climate change and other societal issues. So in high school, I was very involved with legislation regarding environmentalism and menstrual equity. And I was really concerned I wouldn't be able to participate in these activities once I arrived at college, because I would need to work to cover tuition and living costs. But this scholarship has really helped to alleviate much of the financial burden, so I can focus on what I'm actually passionate about. And just last semester, a bill I drafted and proposed was actually passed as Assembly Bill 367. And this really focuses on supporting women in their journey to receive an education by having low-income schools stock their restrooms with free feminine hygiene products. And I would not have been able to do this. I wouldn't have had the time or mental bandwidth to do this without the generous support of your foundation and your scholarship. So thank you so much for that. And in order to leave a lasting legacy, much like the founders of JAWA, I am majoring in political science to eventually become a diplomat. And I'm also considering a double major in business, because my time at Berkeley has really shown me that business and legislation are one of the two main drivers of the world. So I recently joined a consulting club called Berkeley ABA. It's the oldest business organization at Berkeley, and I'm a senior analyst on the nonprofit team. And we've conducted extensive research on corporate social responsibility and the transformative impact it can have. So I'd really like to play some sort of role in that process by either being an international business professional or working with such figures as a diplomat. I think it would be really cool to be the ambassador to Japan. I don't think I could be the Japanese ambassador to the US, but I would love to be the US ambassador to Japan. Because I do eventually want to live in Japan again in the future. But as I'm wrapping this speech up, I would really like to express how grateful I am for the Japanese community at Berkeley and the JAWA Foundation. So after I moved to the US, I lived in a predominantly white area with no Japanese people. And I ended up losing a lot of the culture, and my language skills just went way downhill. So just once I arrived at Cal, one of my main priorities was reconnecting with the Japanese population and my Japanese culture. So I also joined the Cal Japan Club as a social officer. So I would love to see some of the undergraduates here and the graduate student at future events. And then if we do have a community-wide event, I'd love to see some JAWA members there as well. And I would also appreciate staying in contact with this foundation in the future. But yeah, once again, I can't thank you guys enough for the scholarship, and it's really helping me to achieve my goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia, for sharing. And I can tell that you have so many talents and skills. You can go pursue anything. Thank you so much for coming today too. And now we'll hear from Hannah Saib. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, my name is Hannah Saib, and I'm a freshman architecture student at UC Berkeley. I grew up in Nagasaki, Japan, and I came to the US 4 years ago as a freshman in high school. Thank you so much for the financial help. All of my family members and I are very grateful. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my Cal journey so far. My Cal journey has been amazing. I feel like every day I'm learning something different. I'm truly grateful that I'm finally learning my dream subject, architecture, from a professional architect and surrounded by peers who share similar work ethics and passions. I enjoy classes that focus on unique and specific topics, like a class I took last semester that taught me how to understand, analyze, and evaluate what I see, which gave me a whole different perspective of seeing the world. Also, I really enjoy the diversity in on campus. There were rarely foreign people in Japan. And even when I came to the US, because I was in Santa Barbara for high school, there were mostly white Americans and Mexican people. And back then, it was sometimes hard for me to find people who I can fully relate to. But in Berkeley, there are many people who are in similar situations, which is having multiple nationalities. And on top of that, there are many organizations I can be part of to feel fully at home. I'm currently in 4 clubs, and I was part of Nikkei Student Union last semester as well. And going to the events and their retreat that I was part of really made me appreciate of my ethnicity, which I'm very grateful for. My goal is to be a professional architect by going to graduate school and getting a licensure. As of now, I'm trying to minor in structural engineering on top of architecture major so that I can be knowledgeable with the technical aspect of constructing environmental designs. I'm also thinking about studying abroad or getting an internship in foreign countries to learn architecture from a different perspective and where it has more history of architecture than the US. I'm learning Spanish and will continue to Spanish courses every semester so that I can study in my dream country, Spain. And in the future, I really hope to work both in Japan and the US. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And now we're going to hear from Nico Tsukino. Nico?
Hello, my name is Nico. Firstly, I wanted to thank the contributors of JAWA for giving me this amazing opportunity to receive this scholarship. I appreciate it so much. So again, my name is Nico. I am from Los Angeles, and currently I am an intended business or economics major. As like a career, I'm interested in the cosmetic industry. More specifically in like product development sector of business. Since I was little, I was like really deeply passionate about makeup to the point where I would like even create my own perfume bottles by mixing like different kinds of natural ingredients from my kitchen. And because of how passionate I am about makeup and cosmetics, I want to be able to expand accessibility to these makeup products, especially in places where it is very inaccessible and like under-resourced areas. And so through my studies at Cal, I hope to be able to work towards making beauty products more expandable and available in different countries. And through my studies, I hope to gain insight and learn more about the operations of how this side of business works and join clubs that practice these similar paths. And actually, I am a part of a cosmetic business club at Cal called Orem, and they have many like, connections to different beauty industries. And I hope to use that as an advantage to create more networks and connections and further my career. As for my plans for the future and post-graduation, I hope to travel to different places, especially in cities where like the cosmetic businesses are very prominent. So somewhere like New York or even Japan. I hope to live in Japan, in Tokyo specifically, one day because of how big the cosmetic industry is in Japan, such as Shiseido. My aunt is actually a scientist there, a cosmetic scientist there. So I hope to kind of create connection there too and get support from her and advice from her in following my career. And yeah, this scholarship will be a significant support to my academic career. And one day I hope to give back to this organization through the results of my work towards making beauty expandable and accessible to more people. Yeah, and thank you so much again.
Thank you, Nico. I've been told that we're running a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to ask Victoria and Cameron to go up one after the other, and just please, if you could speak a little bit quickly and reduce your time a bit. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we had to do that. Hi there, Victoria.
Hello, my name is Victoria Koch. I am a Hafu, half Japanese, half American, and I'm really proud of my ethnicity. My current major is I'm double majoring in psychology and cognitive science. And that is simply because I think that as an Asian American, there's not a lot of mental health awareness for Asian Americans, and I want to go into the field and diversify the field basically. And in order to do that, I am in a few clubs. I'm a historian for the Asian American Association. I'm also a member of Cal Japan Club. Woo! And also in a consulting club for cognoscience. Currently, I just want to say I'm so thankful for the scholarship, especially because before this, I was working 3 work studies jobs. And this scholarship really helps me to focus on my studies. And for the future, I really hope to become a grad student at Berkeley. And this summer, I am considering working as a behavioral technician in my hometown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Cameron Shiroma. I am the graduate student recipient this year. I was born and raised in Hawaii. I am 7/8 Okinawan and 1/8 Japanese. I graduated from the University of Hawaii at Manoa last spring with my Bachelor's of Arts in Classics and a certificate in Women's Studies. I'm so excited to be here at UC Berkeley as a first year in the Classics graduate program, where I'm currently pursuing my master's and eventually my PhD in Classics. My interests lie primarily in Latin poetry, particularly that of the Augustan era, and the gender dynamics of the ancient world. I'm also interested in the classical reception of Hawaiian education, which I had the chance to research for my undergraduate thesis. This project allowed me to focus on the intersections of power and race as I looked at how the Protestant missionaries from New England utilized classical curricula to establish hierarchies of power in the larger Hawaiian society through the schools that they founded. This project was really important to me because it helped me realize my love and appreciation for Hawaii and how I wanted to give back to the community that had helped raise me into who I am today. I hope to expand upon this research during my time at UC Berkeley while also building upon my interests in gender studies, decolonialism, and classical philology. I'm beyond excited to take advantage of the breadth of classes that the university has to offer and to have the opportunity to work with people outside of the classics department. And particularly, I'm very eager to participate in classes offered by the Gender and Women's Studies department, excuse me. Following my time at UC Berkeley, I hope to become an educator, either as a professor or a secondary school teacher. Ideally in Hawaii, we'll keep our fingers crossed, in order to work with students and encourage them to pursue studies in classics. I believe very strongly that students of all backgrounds and interests deserve to have a strong support system, and I would like to provide that for others as my mentors and professors have done for me. I'm beyond grateful for the generosity and the kindness of JAWA for providing me with the support necessary to follow my aspirations. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks to all our scholars. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stacy Kono. I'm the vice chair of the JAWA board. And just following Barbara, yes, congratulations to all of the scholarship recipients. I have the privilege of introducing our outstanding alumna that we selected. Every year, the JAWA board honors an outstanding alumna as a part of our scholarship event, which we see as an essential part of our vision to inspire and support Asian American women as leaders, learners, and contributors to our communities. Through the years, our outstanding alumni, many who are on this call today, have distinguished themselves in their academic careers, community contributions, and career accomplishments. We can go ahead and put the first slide up as we drum roll, please. So this year, I'm so honored to introduce Midori Kono Thiel as our 2022 Outstanding Alumna. She received her BA in 1955 and her MFA in 1959 at Cal, go Bears, and participated in a traveling UC Berkeley fellowship to study woodblock printmaking in Tokyo. Slide. Midori is an award-winning artist, printmaker, teacher, and lecturer. Her beautiful calligraphy and other art has been exhibited at the De Young, Seattle Art Museum, Portland Art Museum, Wing Luke Museum, Tokyo Metropolitan, and the list goes on. She has received multiple awards and juried prizes in the US and Japan. Her work is also published in several books, including Asian American Art, A History, and Japanese Americans in the Pacific. Her artistic roots started early, she told me, because her parents encouraged her drawing as a child. Slide. So she's being featured by the California Alumna Association this month for Women's History Month. So you should check out the article that comes out. And she is currently the exhibition coordinator for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which will be April 8th through the 10th in Seattle. We're excited that she's joining us from Seattle today, this afternoon, with her son, Kenji, there in the house with her, and her daughter, Tamiko, is joining from Germany. So welcome. Congratulations, Midori, for your achievement and craft. Now we'll hear just a few words from Midori. Oops, yeah. Oh, and we gotta unmute you. Hold on for 1 second. Oh, and Leslie's adding another factual information. Oh, that's right. You shared with us, Midori, you were a resident of the Hearst Street house when you attended UC Berkeley, right?
But I was at Hearst for a while.
That's wonderful.
And in fact, we were grateful that there was a place for us, because otherwise the Japanese American women had no place. There were no dorms that were accessible to them. And so Hearst Hall, I really have a warm spot for Hearst Hall and what they did for the Japanese American women. Just a few words about, I understand it's very short, so I was a major in the art department, and my high school teacher actually in Riverside, California, said, Kono, you might be interested in this. He always used the last names of the students. Berkeley is in a hotbed of abstract expressionism. So maybe you're interested in Berkeley as a place to go. And so I did go to Berkeley, and I was born in Berkeley. My parents were, my father was a seminary student in Berkeley when I was born. And in fact, my son, Kenji, and daughter Tamiko, they were both born in, well, Oakland really, but they grew up in Berkeley also. Unfortunately, they did not go to school in Berkeley. One went to Stanford and MIT, and the other one to UW and USC, but they did okay. I was really grateful for the scholarships that I also received, because otherwise I would not have been able to really go to a place like Berkeley. Berkeley was a state school. It was called the state school in those days. And you could go without, there was no tuition. You paid $39 a year in order to go to Berkeley. And we were very grateful for that, because there was no money at all. I was the first one to go to college, and there were 3 others behind me. the Berkeley experience was, I was so grateful for being able to go to Berkeley. There was so much that I learned from Berkeley, not only just in my academic field, which was in art, but just the fact that it gave so many different offerings to the students that went there. I mean, I went to a poetry class and found out that it was being taught by a world famous poet. I had no idea that this was the kind of caliber of faculty at Berkeley, and I was really grateful for that. What Berkeley has been for me is just a continued inspiration in the way I look at the world, I think. And it is, I was so impressed by the scholarship winners and the caliber of the people involved, and I wish them all the luck. I know they'll just take full advantage of their Berkeley experience.
Thank you so much. If everyone wants to give Midori a big round of applause. Thank you also for your message to the students. Midori received a JAWA pendant, and we'll have her name added to the plaque that's displayed in the Alumni House on campus as one of the JAWA Outstanding Alumna. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Great. So now we're going to transition in our event to hearing from our keynote speaker. I'll just briefly say, the board considered who to invite as our keynote and talked about the importance of recognizing and inspiring multi-generational leadership in our community, again, in alignment with our vision. So I'm so happy to introduce Patricia Miye Wakida, who is an artist, writer, and community historian. Her bio is on our website on the event post, so I'm not going to read through it, and just give her more time actually for her keynote speech. So thank you so much, Patricia, welcome.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. Thank you, JAWA, for inviting me. This is a big deal. I'm a Mills alum, everyone, and I'm wearing my Yonsei Power shirt because I am here representing all Yonsei today. My name is Patricia. I am a Yonsei with roots in California Central Valley. I am a community historian specializing in Japanese American stories. I'm sorry, I need to say slide, please, because I was originally going to share my slides, but had some technical issues. I was going to say this is examples of my oral history work, and here I'm doing an oral history with Yaya Wada here in Berkeley. So next slide, please. I'm a community historian and I'm an artist. My medium of choice is linoleum block carvings. Next slide. And letterpress printing. Next slide. But my practice has also included murals. Next. Illustration. Next. And public art. Next. And then there was that time that I helped bring John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath book to life by driving 1,500 miles from Sallisaw, Oklahoma to Arvin, California, recreating the Joad family's journey west while we stopped in towns to do oral histories and to teach linoleum block classes. Next. My mom and dad were young Sansei children, ages 4 and 5, when they were incarcerated with their parents in Gila River, Arizona on the left and Jerome, Arkansas on the right. Like I said, I'm in Yonsei, which means I only had a sliver of time with my Issei grandparents, a few years in the 1970s. And when I attempted any conversation with them, there was always a language barrier. That means that I learned about most of what I know about my Issei and Nisei family through researching papers and photos in various archives across the country. Next. So what are archives? According to the National Archives, it's a place where people can go to gather firsthand facts, data, and evidence from a collection of recordings like letters, reports, notes, photographs, diaries, documents, visual and audio recordings, and other primary sources. Both family and institutional archives save items to serve as proof that an event has happened, explain why and how these things actually occurred, whether these are personal, financial, or sentimental reasons. And archives can also be located in more than one place. All these mementos and documents tell us a story. They help us remember the past and become evidence for future generations seeking to look at our world today. Next. When I say that my work is to awaken archives, it means that my writing and the art is rooted in historical research and oral histories. Bias and privilege in the creation of an archive has created large gaps in who is present and who is missing. Archivists have the ability to save or erase an individual's history or even the history of an entire people. Archives are not neutral spaces. What is recorded, what is saved, what is protected, and then what is eventually reread and discovered and reinterpreted and shared, these are all decisions that are made about who is remembered. How would you feel if your entire cultural identity was erased, or if the story of your family history existed, but anything that told that history, the photos, the documents, the letters, the journals just weren't kept? Next. I was 28 years old when I was hired by Heyday Books, a nonprofit publishing company based here in Berkeley. And a year later, the CCLPEP program, which is the California Civil Liberties Public Education Program. Some people call it CCLEP. I call it CCLPEP. That's next year, CCLPEP was established and launched through the California State Library, headed by Dr. Kevin Starr and administered by Diane Matsuda. So Heyday applied for a funding that very first year and was awarded a significant grant that allowed us to create the first anthology of literature and art from and about the camps. And I worked as the lead researcher and editor with Lawson Ninada, poet Lawson Ninada. Next slide. We only had 1 year to research, write, edit, get permissions, design, and print only what we could carry due to that CCLPEP grant requirements. I worked very closely with Lawson, who's also from Fresno, and an advisory team that included Chizu Iyama, David Masumoto, Karen Higa, Jim and Jeannie Wakatsuki Houston, and William Horry, who wrote the afterword. These are some of the questions that I asked of that advisory committee to help me guide the research process. What has been said and what hasn't been said, and generally isn't known about the World War II incarceration experience that strikes you as important? On that same level, what has been said and accepted that needs debunking or modification? While the nature of the anthology is a certain openness and inclusion of many voices, I wonder if there are other special opportunities that you see or special dangers that you could predict content-wise for the anthology. So it was really kind of a melding of many, many voices and many minds, if you can see the way I'm describing this. And then on the right is a list of the archives that I was able to access within that time frame to build the book. Next slide. The Bancroft Library right here at Cal is an example of a major archive and was one of the very first archives that I explored in depth. As a lead researcher, I spent countless hours at these different archives, and this was all, I remind you everyone, pre-digitization. I could not go online to look at this stuff. I had to go in person, I had to request for the box, I had to have the boxes come out, or I actually had to go through the dizzying experience of the microfiche, which I'm sure most of these younger students have no idea what I'm talking about. Then we photocopied potential pieces that we were interested in. I made 2 copies. One stayed with me and one went into a box to Lawson Ninada, which I shipped then to his home in Oregon. He read all the photocopies and then would drive to Berkeley, and he did this, I think, 3 times. And we would spend an entire weekend going piece by piece by piece through all of the nominations that I had put together and decide A pile or B pile, while continuing to refine the categories and just tracking the perspective that it actually was going to represent in the book. Over this roughly 6-month research period, I accessed these archives either in person or by hiring some graduate students. So I had actually interns from Cal, and then I had interns back at UCLA who were actually going in and doing research for me. At that point, I had very specific things I was looking for, like law documents and things that had to do with lawyers. I also visited numerous writers and scholars, including Violet de Cristoforo, Kenny Murase, Rita Takahashi, Frank Abe, Joanne and Frank Yutani, Grace Shimizu, Eric Saul, Hiroshi Kashiwagi, and so many, many more, because these people often had stuff in their closets and under their beds, if you can believe it, and they yanked it out to show me what they had. At this time, there was no email too, I know gagging. So most of the correspondence that I did through everybody was by written mail. So next slide.
Trisha,
I wanted to
giving you your 5-minute warning.
Ooh, girl, then we've got to move forward like way ahead. A brief story really quickly about permissions, though. I do want to tell you that we had to get permissions for each piece that was included in the book. There is an example where Superman had a series about going to the camps in 1943 under the guise as Clark Kent. And at that visit, they are walked around and shown how kindly the JA inmates are being treated. But Clark Kent has the advantage of X-ray vision, can see through the walls, sees villainous looking Japanese people planning a riot and to escape and take Lois Lane as a hostage. So I wrote to DC Comics wanting to reproduce some of those comic strips in the book, but this was what they wrote back. We sincerely regret that we are unable to run an excerpt from this comic strip and that DC Comics alone among the publishers whom we queried was adamant in refusing us permission to reprint sensitive material. So this, I'm going to skip forward. This is what we ran in the book. Next slide. In 1999 or 2000, Heyday published numerous books related to the World War II concentration and internment camps with support from the CCLPEP, including this anthology of Toshio Mori's writing, this collection of writings about the Italian American internment experience, and this now classic book on UC Berkeley art professor Chiodo Bata's experience in Camp Topaz Moon. Next slide. In 1992, JANM opened an exhibit called The View from Within, Japanese American Art from the Internment Camps, 1942 to 45. It included 135 works of fine art and was curated by the extraordinary Karen Higa. At that time, actually, I was, again, still a student at Mills with Christine Kim, who's to my left in this photograph. And Karen came, to my astonishment, to teach as a guest lecturer at Mills. And once Chrissy, graduated, she went to JANM as Karen's protege. And the friendship between us all developed into, next slide, Heyday collaborating with JANM on these 3 artist catalog books, where I served as project director and oversaw the creation of the manuscripts, production, marketing, and outreach. So Hisako Hibi, Henry Sugimoto, and Hideo Date. This was an extraordinary experience to work with the actual paintings and work with JANM on creating these wonderful books. Next slide. And this eventually influenced my becoming a researcher, writer, editor, oral historian that specialized in camps, artists, and writers. How do we want to do this? Do we want to just skip a bunch of slides?
Up to you. I'm sorry to be the bearer.
I guess I'll just keep going and you guys will cut me off. Next slide, please. I was invited by Brian Nia to join the Densho Encyclopedia team in 2011. And I will say that this online version of this encyclopedia isn't live. It's always ongoing. We can always make edits and changes to it. And I've done over 150 entries for this so far. Next slide. Like today's outstanding alumna honoree. So I was kind of thrilled when I found out this was the person who was going to be honored. Next slide. I also mentioned that I'm an artist. About 7 years ago, I received my very first public art project in Fresno and applied family research in designing it. I am an American 25344 is based on my maternal grandmother and marks the former Fresno Civil Control Station. So this was where people in Fresno County had to meet to be assigned and registered a new government number, and also where people who need transportation were told to meet and they were transported to the Fresno Assembly Center, which was actually at the Fresno Fairgrounds. So while the original building has been demolished, the Fresno Housing Authority was required to commemorate it. So this resulted in this piece. Next slide. In 2021, I was chosen through a national call for artists to design a public sculpture that honors the 606 Japanese Americans that left from the Hayward area and met at what is now the Hayward Heritage Plaza Park to board the buses headed for Tanforan. So the sculpture will be actually installed in that same park in very close proximity to the place where people stood to and waited for those buses. The sculpture is in its first stages of fabrication right now with hopes that it will be installed this summer. Next slide. So I just wanted to bring up that for this Hayward piece, I'm also doing research. I've done oral histories. I read existing oral histories. And then we also, the committee I'm working with, this wonderful community committee, pulled together all of these, what am I trying to say? These registration slips that came from the civil control stations in 1942, where families had to list the names of the family, the age, and their addresses and so forth. So this is the one for Toshio Mori. Next slide. And the next one is Hisako Hibi and her daughter Ibuki there. I bring this up because again, I had worked with their stories previously, so it's kind of thrilling for the circle to come back around. Next slide. So this is where my love of books, my historical work, and my lino block work seem to be merging into one. So just this year, Heyday Books published a 50th anniversary edition of Yoshiko Uchida's Journey to Topaz and commissioned me to create a new lino block print for this new cover. So that's the actual book cover, and the next slide is the original block print. I will say and thank Jane Beckwith from the Topaz Museum, who helped me identify, like, what did the buses look like on the inside? What were the shapes of the barracks, the size of the doors, the shape of the little caps that went onto the chimney, so it could be both lovely and, you know, aesthetically pleasing as well as historically accurate. There's a question here from Hannah already, and I'll just go ahead and address it. So Hannah is asking me about how I learned to do block prints, and do I have an idea where you can get an opportunity to learn them? So I actually learned in Japan. So when I was a student at Mills, I graduated and went to Japan, and I happened to find an apprenticeship with a paper maker, so a traditional paper maker. And one night he just pulled out a whole bunch of linoleum, and I'd never worked with this before, and he just showed me how to do it. So I really kind of learned through an apprentice method, kind of learning how to do it yourself. However, I do teach linoleum block classes at the San Francisco Center for the Book, which is an incredible, amazing book arts organization in San Francisco. And my next class I'll be teaching, unfortunately, is going to be over the Easter weekend, and it's going to be linoleum block prints on fabric, so like shirts and tea towels and stuff.
Thank you. Where can I get the information of that class?
You know what? I'm going to drop the sfcb.org is San Francisco Center for the Book, and it's a place it's really after my heart. I used to be on their board, and I've done several artist residencies with them. So if you want to reach out to me, I am always happy to talk to people about the Center for the Book too, because it's such a cool place.
Great, thank you.
Sure, Hannah. I wanted to explain that this is another book that'll be coming out 2023. This is a mock cover, by the way. I designed it myself. The publisher has not done it yet, but I wanted to show you where we're going. So David Masamoto is also a UC Berkeley alum, and he has written a book about his lost aunt. I'm not going to give any more away than that, but I created over 35 linoleum blocks for this book for him, and it's really exciting. So next slides. The next two slides are images from that. So this is people leaving for Gila River, which is where his family went. Next slide. And then this one is Bachan and Gila River, which again, my family was there as well, so it had a lot of resonance. And I did the sketch for this piece immediately after returning for Gila River for the first time at the invitation of the Gila River Indian Reservation. So next slide. So I just wanted to explain very briefly that I just in January joined the Topaz Museum board, which means a whole lot to me because I believe so much in their mission. I believe in their leadership. If you've never been to Topaz Museum in Delta, Utah, please go. It's an incredible experience. And the docents, if not the director, will take you out on a tour to the actual site, which is 11 miles away from the museum. And if you have family that did live in Topaz and were incarcerated at Topaz, and can give that to them ahead of time, they can research where your block was, walk you to where that is, and it's just an incredible space. Next slide. I also worked with them originally on all of the text for the permanent exhibition, so I wrote most of the text throughout the museum, and 2 years ago I took my Gosei son there to check it out. Next slide. Yonsei Memory Project. So I just wanted to say a couple things about this because again, in Yonsei, Yonsei Memory Project was started in 2017 by writers Nikiko Matsumoto and Bryn Saito, and they have their flagship event that they do every year is Day of Remembrance. So in 2019, they invited me to create a community mandala. Like, how could we create something together as public art and do it at the Fresno Fairground, which again, I said was the assembly center for Fresnans. So we did an incredible poetry writing mandala experience. Next slide. And then this year we actually did, I'm sorry, here's another photograph of this. And it was actually freezing cold and super sad. I have to say, this was such an experience to be there. Again, power of place, that you're actually right there. My son was 4 at that time. My mom came and she lived in the camp for a while. So I'm getting all emotional. Next slide. So this year we actually did our first online artist showcase. And I will say that it was not only such a powerful experience to take it outside of the Central Valley and gather people from all over the place, but we decided to step aside and highlight 3 artists who use historical research and family research in their own artwork. And it was a profound program, at least in my opinion. I thought it was really, really successful. And it was really kind of showing that it's time for the Yonsei to step forward. And I think all of us realize that generationally, Japanese Americans, it's also about power. We're an unusual a usual ethnic group where we call each other by Issei, Nisei, Sansei, Yonsei. And for up till now, the Issei and the Nisei have really been very much in power up to the Sansei, and Yonsei are just now coming into this. So next slide. I've been saying to people, like when I worked at JANM, people came to me all the time trying to, donate their artifacts and their photos and things. And I tell people, none of this stuff is going to matter to anyone more than you and your family. So even though these are important historical things and they can tell stories to the greater community, these artifacts are yours and no one's going to know who these people are either. So I think these are the last of my slides. Next one. And I wanted to end with a project that I just participated in with Densho in honor of the Women's History Month, and where writers were invited to submit a photo from their family archives and tell us a story about it. And this is what I submitted. Sorry. 4 sons, these Issei women. I recognize my 2 Hi-Obachan, Shizuno Wakida and Rai Wada. And although I don't know who the other 2 women are, they feel like universal immigrant great-grandmothers from all over the map. I recognize that they have gathered at my grandma Rose's house in Fresno, the house I remember with its spiny sago palms at the front door and the lush garden cultivated for ikebana in the back. Next. An innocent white frosted cake rests in the foreground, an edible trophy for all the hard years before them in celebration of Shizuno's Beiju, lucky 88th birthday on September 15th, 1975. She's come so far from her hometown of Hiroshima, and if there were punishments for her decision to leave Japan, they aren't evident here. Next slide. These women know the person behind this camera and acquiesce to sharing their happiness with them. The years of packing for the future, the cleaning, cooking, coddling, caring, are drawing to a quiet pinpoint on the horizon known as death. Behind them, the kitchen table is piled with gifts, the linoleum floor and pleather chairs wiped neat, and the cabinet gleams with precious brass vases and imari plates, folk toys, best china. All of this is gone. Now, all we have left are the photographs. Next slide. The photo albums I inherited from my grandma with decades-old gaps and no clues scrawled onto their backs, that's all I have. However yellowed and frayed, these are the last of my ancestors that my family and maybe a few community friends who are also witnesses at the time alone can read and interpret these photos. Last slide. These photos belong to you and your family, and no one will ever love them the way that you do. Keep these time-traveling marvels, don't forget them. Keep them sacred and write their stories down. Awakening Archives is sometimes a job where I create a historical inventory in chronological order, particularly when there's lots of restraints and demands and objectives. But occasionally when I'm left alone with the research and with enough time to really sense the story embedded in the records, I can actually hear music and I can hear the poetry of the person's soul. Last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Sorry, that was very, very lengthy, really.
No, it was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh, you're getting props in the chat. Thank you, Victoria. Are there any questions folks have you want to close us out with?
Oh, Victoria's from Fresno. Yeah, I mean, that's actually, that's worth saying, it's like the Central Valley is another layer of hidden secret, kind of not so exposed storytelling. So it means a lot to me. What, Adena too? Man, we got to have our own sub. Like, we're going to do a breakout room now. Tell people to the right. So, well, thanks everyone. As you can just see, it's all about looking at all of the documents that have been left behind, whatever you can find. And I beg everyone, please, when you're looking around your house and you think, oh, I need to throw this away, I've got too much clutter. There are things in your house that you can reproduce. There are dishes, there are, just stuff, things, clothes and stuff. But what are the things that there's one of in the whole wide world? One that was ever made and will never be made again, that can never be reproduced. Those are the things I want you to really look at and think about and try to find out, maybe even make up a story for it. I like doing this exercise sometimes with people, like, what is the oldest thing in your house? I truly think about it. I mean, most of our stuff is pretty new.
Wow, what a wonderful Saturday afternoon with you all. Thank you again, Midori, for
I think my grandparents were at Topaz.
Oh, see all of these connections.
Well, you guys are all Bay Area, so it makes a lot of sense that there's a lot of Topaz people here.
All of these connections.
Yeah, reach out to me. If you have stuff about Topaz you want to talk to me about, come to me, please.
Wonderful. Thank you all again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Thank you for joining us here with JAWA.
Thank you so much for the invitation, everyone. Staking
This
long.
has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And hey, we have to say thank you to Susie Cohn-Crumpler from the California Alumni Association. Thanks for your words of encouragement and acknowledgement of JAWA. And also, thank you, Midori, for sharing your story as an alumni of UC Berkeley and for giving us your beautiful art to appreciate. And Patricia Miye Wakida, I can't wait to see your new book on Journey to Topaz, since I was an elementary school teacher. And thank you so much for sharing as much as you did in our limited space. It was wonderful. And thank you to the scholarship awardees and the Nikkei Student Union. Thank you to all our members, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope to see you next year, if not sooner. And we will officially close with our favorite part of Zoom, my favorite thing to do in Zoom, which is, if possible, please unmute yourselves so we can all say goodbye and wave to each other. Are you ready? Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.